I'm out here in the shed today. Gonna weld me up a cart for my heavy hitch weight bracket. I don't know if you guys ever seen these before, but if you go to heavyhitch.com, you'll be able to see these weight brackets that they sell for the rear of your tractor for the 3-point hitch. And they also sell a little accessory that slides into the receiver hitch on the weight bracket, and then you're able to lower the weight bracket down onto the cart and kind of dolly around your weight bracket with the weights still connected to it. So it's kind of nice. You don't have to remove all the weights individually and then lift off your bracket and set it to the side. You can leave it all on, you drop it down onto this cart, and you kind of dolly it around. So that's really nice if you're running a lot of rear attachments. It's nice if you just want to take off the weights in general. It's less labor for your back, and it's also a lot quicker as well. So what I got here is some 1x1 square tubing that I picked up from my local steel shop. I got some 1/8 inch plating. I got some more down here. I got a piece of 2x2 square stock. This is what's going to be going into the receiver hitch. I got a piece of 2x1 inch, and this will be getting connected to this guy here, the 2-inch receiver, and that's going to be coming off of our main frame that is a 1 inch, and that's why I got 1x2 so that it sits on there nicely, and then the 2x2 will stick off of this and go into my receiver hitch. So the main frame is going to be a nice square like this. I don't have any kind of real cutting tools. I only have a Sawzall right now. I want to get some better tools for cutting, like a bandsaw and that kind of thing. So I can't really cut a nice 45. Otherwise, I'd put these at 45-degree angles. So my plan is to tack weld these all in place when I get them squared up. And then I'm going to use this plate steel here. I traced out a little triangle bracket that'll be going on each corner. So I'll be cutting this with the plasma cutter, and one of these pieces will be going on each corner. I think that'll be enough, just having them up top. That's basically what's going to tie these pieces together on all the corners. So I will weld them on the inside and on the outside, but the top and bottom will be held together with these plates. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That, I believe, is all you need, other than some casters, which I don't have on hand right now. I'll have to go to Harbor Freight and pick up some casters, because once this is all finished, I'll be drilling holes through the plate steel, and the casters will be getting mounted to the bottom of the plate steel, and that's how this thing will be dollied around. Once this is done, I'll paint it probably Kubota gray or Kubota orange, and I should be all set. It's a pretty simple project. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of steel involved. I think I have everything I need, so we'll get welding here and see what we come up with. First thing I'm going to do is tack together my square stock for my framing, and once I got that all tacked together, we'll start plasma cutting this plate steel and getting our braces cut out. Still trying to get used to this welder. Takes a little bit of time to get used to a new welder, but I bought it just so I can do projects like this at home. Alright, well now that we got that tacked, get my other piece here. It's going to be this guy here. I'm not trying to do real thick welds right now, because once that plate gets put on here, I'm going to re-weld it anyway, so that it's joined with the plate on the corners and even on the ends. So right now, this is more or less just to kind of hold it structurally. Alright, now that we got the main part of the frame welded together, now we can cut our corner pieces out of the plate steel that we have. So I get the plasma cutter and get them cut. I'm going to cut my first one, and then once I have my first one, I'll have a template that I'll trace out for the rest of them. Nice clean cut. I'm only on 110 volts, by the way, not on 220. This plasma cutter is capable of 220, and on 220 it'll rip right through 1/2-inch plate steel like butter. But on 110 volts, I noticed that I can get through 3/8-inch thick steel. As long as I'm not cutting a real long piece, it will cut through it, so it doesn't do too bad for 110 volts. So now we got our template. I'll use that to trace the rest of these. See how many pieces I can get out of this piece of flat stock here. It's pretty hot still, so. The next piece, as you can see, it's just like our first one. Now once you get a template made up, it's real easy just to keep going with it. I did notice my air pressure is low. This would be cutting much easier, but I forgot I don't have my air compressor on. So let me turn my compressor on, let it pump up, and then we'll get back to cutting. Alright guys, so I got the compressor all pumped back up. It's a 60-gallon compressor, and typically I have it around 155 psi. So it's got plenty of power for this plasma cutter. On a full tank, I can cut, you know, for hours before I need to fill it back up. Most of my tools are cordless tools, so I don't need the air a whole lot. But when you need it, it's definitely nice to have. So we got 2 pieces cut now. The other piece is right here. I was just mocking it up to see how it fits. It fits really nice. So we'll get our other pieces cut. I think I'm only going to cut 4 pieces. I think that's going to be plenty just to have them on the top side. That should be plenty to hold together, because when this sits over it, I'm going to have a bead of weld on each side here. I'm going to have a bead of weld on the inside, and then on the outside as well. So I think it's going to be plenty strong enough just to be a little weight bracket cart. Make another one right here. I'm just using a white paint marker. These things work great for steel. You could write on almost any surface, glass, anything very smooth. These markers do a really good job. So we'll cut this side first, right here. At the end here, I'll talk about the units that I'm using, the welder and the plasma cutter that I'm using. I'll talk about how much I paid and how well I like them. This welder is the first time I'm using this welder. This is the first real job I'm using it on. I'm getting used to this inductance knob. It's got an inductance knob on it. They have that knob on more professional welders. And what it's supposed to do is the lower the setting, the thinner the bead of weld it's supposed to lay. And the higher the setting, the thicker of a weld it's going to lay. Without you having to adjust your speed. So it's kind of a nice setting, but it takes a little bit of time getting used to. For my first few welds, I had this inductance turned way down, and I should have had it turned up. I forgot all about it. But, you know, they're still going to be plenty strong enough, so. Air pressure is vital when you're doing plasma cutting. You gotta have the proper air pressure. If you don't, you're not gonna really get through the material. And the slower you go when you plasma cut, the hotter it makes the steel. So the faster you can get it cut, the sooner you can touch the steel after you've cut it. And the less chance you have of warping the steel. Because if you cut too slowly on a thin piece of steel, you could definitely warp it if you're not careful about it. But for the most part, it works pretty good. Break off there now. There you go. Nice clean cut. You can see how clean it cuts that. That's such a nice job. And when you're all done, you could just chisel away at the slag. Just a few hits with a chisel and it knocks it right off. And it'll look just like this when you're done knocking it off. Nice and clean. We got one more to make, and I think we'll be good with our braces. See if we could fit one more on here. There's our last piece. All right, now that we got that cut, we can get our main frame back up over here, and we can get our corner pieces welded on. We've got our frame right here. We've got all of our corner pieces cut out, all 4 of them. These are gonna sit on here like so. One there, one here, here, and one here. I was gonna make 4 more and do the underside as well, but I don't think it's necessary. And the casters that I buy are probably going to be the casters with the single pin coming off the top, so I could drill a hole, and then the caster slides up through the hole, and it's got like a snap clip that goes up top, and that holds the caster in place. So that's how I'm going to do that. So now that we're at this point, I could weld in my corner pieces. We'll do one at a time, and once that's done, we can move on to the receiver hitch. I'm gonna leave myself a little bit of a gap on the edge here. I'm not gonna weld it right up to the edge because you wanna have a little bit of a valley for the weld to sit in. So I'm gonna leave it out just about maybe an 1/8 inch, 1/16 of an inch. And then that way I could have a little valley for the weld to beat into. I'm just gonna tack all these in place first, and then we'll fully weld them after. All right, now that they're tacked into place, we can fully weld them. All right, guys, I think we got all 4 corners welded now. One corner, 2 corners, 3, 4. Now what I'm gonna do is weld the insides. So up on this side here and then up on this side here. Get that done, and then this thing should be rock solid. Okay, that should be it for our frame. I'll give you a little close up of these welds. As you can see, those turned out much nicer. A little bit more heat, a little bit more wire speed. All right, well, now we can get on to making our receiver mount, finally. And get my gloves back on. That metal was starting to get hot, so threw my welding gloves on. All right, so we want to get our 1x2 inch. This is going to go on the side like this. I got to figure out what length I need it at, and then off of this is going to be our 2x2 inch, which will go into the receiver on the 3-point hitch weight bracket. Let's take a walk outside real quick and kind of see how this measures up, so I can get a feel for where I need to cut these. All right, we're outside now. I'm behind my tractor here. I got the frame that I just welded. So this frame is going to go something like this. Let me get my receiver out of the way here. So here it is right here. That's my receiver. So that's what we're trying to tie into here. So we'll put that 2x2 piece of steel in there. And then here is the 1x2. That will be connecting the frame and the receiver together. So this should sit approximately like so. So what I need to do is get a measurement of where to cut this 1x2 so that I have the proper height when I weld this all together. I'm just gonna raise my 3-point hitch a little bit because right now it's all the way bottomed out. I want to put it up in like the middle position. That way I can properly measure this out, because to remove this weight bracket onto the cart, I'm gonna have to drop this thing down as far as it'll go so that the weight bracket comes out of my quick hitch. All right, I've got a 2x4 so that I can shim up the frame to account for the casters that I'm going to be putting on it. I'm not exactly sure how tall these casters I'm going to be getting are, but I just want to give it some more height so that I can properly measure this. I'll definitely give myself some room for error here. That way, if my casters are an inch taller or an inch shorter, I should have some wiggle room here so it'll still work and come off of the quick hitch properly. So that looks pretty good as far as the height goes. If you look here, probably about how high it's going to be off the ground with the little casters that I'm getting for this. So now that we have that shimmed off the ground to account for the caster wheels, now what I got to do is figure out how much more downward travel I have in my 3-point hitch to make sure I account for enough to get these pins out of the quick hitch. So I'm going to lower it down a little bit more here and see what my max is for how far it'll go down. All right, so that's all the way down. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to mark this at its full down position. And then I'm going to bring it up about midway and mark its midway position. This way I can measure the difference and make sure that I'm giving myself enough room for this thing to drop down and out of the quick hitch. Okay, so that's about midway for my 3-point hitch to be risen, which is probably where it's going to be at when I go to remove this, when I'm ready to. We want to mark it up here. All right, so we got this mark here, and we got this mark here. So what we need to do is make sure that this 2-inch receiver is somewhere in the middle here. We can't be down here, but we don't want to be all the way up here either because that's way too high. So I think I'm going to be right somewhere in the middle here. And that should give me the, 2 or so inches I need to have these pins come out of the quick hitch. All right, guys, so we're back in the shed. This is going to go something like this here in the center. This piece of 2x1. And then as we figured out outside, this is our lowest point where the 3-point hitch will drop. And this is about the midpoint where my 3-point hitch usually rests. So I found out that I want to be somewhere here in the middle. I made a dot to where I think I need to put this, which is somewhere right in the middle here. I don't know how well you guys are seeing this, but it's going to go something like this. So I got a mark here on the 2x1. I'm going to cut it. And then once I cut it, what we're going to do is we're going to join these two pieces together. We'll weld them together, and then once this is welded together, we could weld it onto our frame. So let's get that done now. Okay, so I got my piece cut. Now I'm going to go and square it up on the grinder. Alright, so now we got that cut to the right size. You guys can see how this is gonna go here. It's gonna look something like that. For now, let's get these two pieces welded together, and then we'll get it welded to the frame. There's our trusty magnets. Keeps everything nice and square. Okay, that should be it, guys. All right, now we can finally attach it to our frame here. What I gotta do is find center, and once I find my center, we can weld this right on, just like that. Okay, so we got 24.5 here. That's our total width. I went with that width because that is about the exact width of my custom weight bracket that I built a couple years back. So that would be approximately 1.25 feet, and that will be our center. So let me mark that. So there's our center. All I'm gonna do is get center on this, which is a 2-inch piece, so be right at the 1-inch mark. So now I can line up my marks, and it should go right there. So let me get this tacked into place now. Get my glove back on because it's still pretty hot. Okay, I got it tacked. Get the other two corners here. Just gotta weld the front side. All right, it's all welded up. It's starting to look like something now, finally. There's the welds on that. All right, guys, so now the last thing we have to do here, I still have to drill a hole here for my pin to go through. But for now, I'm gonna leave it the way it is because I'm just gonna be testing this out. I definitely get the hole drilled before I paint it. But now our next step is gonna be getting on our bottom braces, which support the bottom of the suitcase weight bracket. For that, I'm gonna use some flat stock. I'm gonna use pieces of flat stock like this, and it is gonna support it. So I think I could probably use this piece here. I gotta take some more measurements though, and we gotta figure out exactly how high the bottom of the weight bracket sits from the top of this frame here. So there'll be a piece of this on either side, and then that is what's going to support the front of the bracket, and the back of the bracket is going to be supported by this 2-inch receiver. I got to go out there and measure one more time. We'll slide this into my hitch and we'll see where we're at as far as where these supports need to go. All right guys, so we're starting to run out of daylight here. I got my light out here so we can see. Grab the bracket, slide it on into place here, like so. And now what we need to do is figure out how far from the bottom of the weight bracket this frame sits. So it looks like it's going to be about 7 1/4 inches, and that's going to support the bottom of this weight bracket. All right guys, sorry my camera died out there. I got it on the charger now. What I found out was from the edge here, we're 7 1/4 in to the center of where we need to be for the bottom of our bracket. And then what I also found out is we're 7 3/8 high off of the frame of this bracket to the bottom of the weight bracket. So we need to make a piece that's 7 3/8 tall, and we got to weld it on here at 7 1/4 from the front of it. So what I'm going to do, since I don't have 2 pieces of flat stock that are the same size, I line this up. I'm going to make a mark here, and I'm going to take the plasma cutter and make these both the same width. I believe this is 4 inches. Yeah, this is a 4-inch piece here. So I'm going to make them both 4-inch pieces of flat stock, and then I'm going to cut them both down to 7 3/8, and then we'll weld them on here at 7 1/4 from the front to the middle. Okay, so we got our mark. Take the plasma cutter, I'll cut this off. Then we'll have 2 4-inch wide pieces of flat stock to work with. Go. Looks like we're dead on. So now what we're gonna do is measure 7 3/8. I'll make my mark on both of these, and we'll cut them both at 7 3/8, and then we're gonna have our support pieces to weld onto our frame. They both look pretty darn close to me. All right, I'm gonna knock the slag off these, clean them up on a grinder, and I'll get back with you guys when I'm ready to weld them onto our frame. I got the 2 supports all cleaned up. As you can see, you can't even tell the difference between the 2 of them. So now we're gonna weld these onto our frame, just like this, and that's what's gonna support our weight bracket. All right, guys, that's it. It's finally complete for the most part. The only thing we're missing now is the casters. Like I said, I'm gonna get casters with the single shaft coming out of them. So I'll just drill a single hole right at the corner of each one of these plates. And the caster will come up through the hole and it gets clipped on the top and then it just pivots around. So that's the only thing I'm missing now, that and paint. And then I do have to drill a hole here at the end of the receiver for my pin to slide through so it doesn't come out. But let me get the tractor in here now. I'll get this stuff cleaned up and we'll give it a test fit. All right, guys, well, there it is, final product. Somewhere I lost the footage, but before I welded these braces on, I ended up putting one farther back than the other to offset it because it was kind of snug under here. So I thought that maybe if I had one forward and one a little bit backwards, it would give me a little bit more ease of sliding this thing in there. It is better, it is still a little bit snug, so what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to just grind a little bit off the tops of each one of these. Just so it fits in there a little bit easier. Because right now when I slide it in there, I gotta kind of jiggle it as I work it forward. It's a real minor issue. All I gotta do is just shave down a little bit off the tops of these mounts on each side. But yeah, that's the finished product. I feel like it turned out really nice. So next time you guys see it, I will have a coat of paint on there. I'll have the hole drilled here. I'll have the caster wheels on each corner, and it'll be completely done. I plan on doing like a little bit more of these kind of videos. So if you guys like these kind of videos, make sure you give it a thumbs up. I'm going to be building a front weight bracket for the Kubota BX, and I'm also going to be building my own push box this winter. So that's going to be a really fun project. I hope to get into that pretty soon here, because pretty soon the snow is going to start flying, and I am tired of plowing with my bucket every year. So that'll be really nice to have a push box. So yeah, hopefully you guys like this. Let me slide it on here and I'll shim it up because right now I don't have any casters on it. And I'll lower this thing down and we'll see if it can hold the weight bracket with the weights. Slide it in just like that. So that's about how it's going to sit. Just got to figure out exactly where I want my hole for my pin. So that's exactly how it works, guys. And when this gets lowered, this hitch receiver holds the back part of it, and then to keep the front from sagging, that's what these mounts here are for. So if you guys can just picture this with some casters on it, you'll kind of get the full picture of what it's supposed to do. Once you set it down, you can roll it around, and you can put a different implement on, like a back blade. And then when you're ready to have your weights back on the rear, you take your back blade off or whatever you're using. You'll roll this back over to your 3-point hitch, you'll back up to it, pick up on it with your quick hitch, pull the pin, and slide your cart back off. And you're all set to go again. So I think it's going to be a much easier way of removing the weights and switching out implements instead of having to remove all of my suitcase weights one at a time and then removing my bracket separately. Plus now you can kind of roll it around and get it out of the way. All right, let me get some shims underneath this and we'll drop it down and see what happens. I'm going to pull my handles here, unlock my quick hitch, and I'll lower it down. We'll see what happens. There you go. It's off. Not enough weight to bring it all the way down. But there you go, guys. So now it's fully supported by the bracket we just made, as you can see here, swinging on that 2x4. Once I have some casters in place, I'll be able to just roll it right around. Let me just pick it back up now and lock it back in, and we'll end this video. So I'd call that a success. Turned out really nice. And one last thing I told you guys I'd talk about is the welder I used today. This is a Titanium Mig 140. You can get them at Harbor Freight. This is not made by Harbor Freight, it's made for Harbor Freight. So it's not your typical Harbor Freight welder. This is a welder that's built very tough. It's got an all metal drive system. It holds 12-pound spools. It's got some really nice professional features. It's got the 2T, 4T switch. It's got a digital layout. As you're using it, it'll tell you what kind of voltage you're drawing and all that. It's got alarms on it. It'll tell you if you're hitting overcurrent protection. You got your wire speed, your voltage, and then you got your inductance knob, which this is what I was playing with the most earlier when I first started welding with it. This is my first job with this welder, and it performed really great. Very, very happy with it. This will hold up to a .035 MIG wire, and it'll do gas and gasless. So it'll do flux core and gas. I have a little bottle on the back there. Hard to see, but it's there. And then the plasma cutter I was using, that is a Cut 50 DF. It's actually a Chinese plasma cutter. I actually bought it for 299 bucks before last Christmas. It's really been an awesome plasma cutter. It's 110 or 220. On 110, it'll cut 3/8 inch steel like nothing. And then 220, it'll cut 1/2 inch steel like nothing. It's got a digital layout as well. And I think it goes really well with my welder. I'm using a Miller helmet. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be doing another video soon on building that front weight bracket. It's gonna go right off the front of the receiver hitch down here. So that's gonna be an interesting video. I have all the steel that I need for that under there. And then once I get done with that, I will be starting on the push box project. So you guys stay tuned if you like this. And like I said before, give it a thumbs up if you enjoy these type of videos, and I'll make sure I keep making them. That's gonna be it for this one, guys. Till then, we'll see you guys in the next one.